And at that point, that was the first time I realized that you could apply this technology to the mainstream financial sector. And it took a while for me to make that connection because I didn't understand that you could separate, in quote unquote, separate the blockchain from Bitcoin. Of course you can't, and we can probably talk a little bit more about that later. I'm one of many who made a detour around enterprise blockchain and have come back. Jimmy Song just gave a great interview a few weeks back to Laura Shin about that, about his trip through.
Do you think this is really important, right? So do you think that it's almost a requirement in order to start out, get excited, you find out the technology, and then you have to explore all of the intellectually possible scenarios, and then you end up coming back to what is in reality probably the most likely application? Well,
it's interesting. That's what Jimmy did, and he's obviously a technologist, so we came at it from different perspectives, but both ended up in the same place, essentially concluding, the enterprise stuff is okay for things probably outside of financial services, right? Supply chain is where it's taking off. Do you really need a blockchain for that? Probably not, but the truth is that it's a marketing gig and it's causing some very interesting things to happen in supply chain. There's a company in Wyoming called Beef Chain that is doing exactly that, to track the provenance of Wyoming beef. It's solving a problem that nobody knew how to solve, and now this technology has sort of opened up the conversation. So I don't mean to impugn enterprise blockchain across the board, but I do believe, and I did say in a Forbes column recently, a lot of enterprise blockchain was essentially made obsolete by the ICE announcement, because what ICE did was break the seal in embracing digitally native assets. And that's what Jimmy said to Laura was ultimately why he concluded that it was very difficult to apply blockchain, not Bitcoin, so to speak, to the enterprise world, because you have a lot of things like trade breaks and reversals that the regulators have to be able to come in. So effectively, the regulators have to be a super node, and therefore you really aren't decentralized. Therefore, you're better off working in a centralized database architecture. To paraphrase Jimmy's, I hope I haven't misstated. I came at it from a different perspective, which was I knew that Wall Street wasn't going to accept Bitcoin. So I was more from a legal and compliance perspective thinking, all right, how do we actually figure out how to go through that intermediate step of the walled garden, to use Andreas's phrase, where you know the intranet first before internet. That's the way enterprises think. They don't take big leaps. They do take more incremental steps. And nobody was interested in wholesale replacing their IT architecture, in which they've invested billions. So I knew this was going to be a slow process. But I was pleasantly surprised by the ICE announcement that they are embracing natively digital assets. That is a big deal, because that means they just leapfrogged over that whole tokenization, blockchain, not Bitcoin philosophy. And ICE can do a lot that's very positive with that. I hope they do.